Anybody that says that the 2024 budget that President Tinubu signed into law will have any positive impact on the average Nigerian, that person should go and look at that budget again. That budget is a budget of consumption, a budget of wasteful consumption, not the renewed hope budget that they call it. 90% of that budget, go and look at it, is on consumption. Spending on things that are just going to be consumed, that will not yield recurrent revenue. That's consumption. If you add the salaries and you add the overhead and you add the debt servicing together, those three together, they form almost 90% of the budget. They are on consumption. Now, the remainder, the 6 trillion or 7 trillion or so that is for capital projects, 90% of that capital project 6 trillion is on buying cars and building houses. And guess what? These two activities alone, in fact, let me add the third one, software acquisition. These three alone, building houses, buying cars, and software acquisition. These three alone, they go a long way in ensuring that there is increased unemployment in Nigeria. Think about it. The more cars they buy, the more building materials they import, the more software acquisitions they make, because, of course, we pay the likes of Microsoft for the software, the more we ship our jobs away to those people and we increase unemployment here. So this budget is a budget of renewed wasteful consumption, and that is not good for Nigeria. In fact, if you consider that the World Bank and the IMF are the people who love for the global south, for third world countries to be a consumption economy, then you will say that this budget, this 2024 budget that Tinubu signed into law is, as we describe it in biblical terms, the hand of Tinubu, but the voice of the IMF and the World Bank. The budget is just playing into the hands of the IMF and the World Bank. Makes me think that they probably had a lot of input to this budget because it goes contrary to everything that Tinubu promises. Look at the budget of military, the budget of defense, 1.6 trillion naira. Out of that 1.6 trillion, do you know that it's only 100 billion naira that is actually budgeted for arms and ammunition? The remainder 1.5 trillion goes to salaries and building and buying cars. That's what it goes for. And of course, these are consumption items, things that we buy that does not give us jobs. They don't, because in buying them, we actually ship our jobs away. Now, the one that is even painful to me, G20, President Tinubu visited India. And he was talking to the Indian Prime Minister, is the president now, Narendra Modi. And he said that, he wants India to sell their aircraft to us so that fighter jets. These fighter jets were made by state-owned company of India. And we were told by Tinubu then that they had secured investment to grow our steel, to grow our arms manufacturing. In fact, they said they got $2 billion investment for the DICON, Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON. These companies can actually spur or revolutionize or rapidly move Nigeria towards industrialization, in the sense that we can begin to produce the armored vehicles, the AK-47s, the ammunitions, we can produce them here. So one would have expected that out of the 1.6 trillion that was allocated for defense, that out of which only 100 billion was allocated for arms and ammunition, you would expect that even that 100 billion would have gone to the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, so that in doing that, they can manufacture our weapons and ammunitions locally. They can try, they can do it. One would have thought that, but do you know that it is only 3 billion naira that is allocated to DICON, and it's to make bullets for AK-47. That's all. Just a minute portion. So this goes to serving the economies of those global north, the imperialist white. That's all it does. And in doing so, we make sure that our youths are sentenced to a life of unemployment and hardship and hunger. That's what we're doing. So if anybody tells you that this budget is a budget that will bring economic boom to Nigeria, that person is either paid by Tinubu to say that, or the person does not know what he's saying. The IMF and the World Bank do not want us to develop, and that is the truth. They want us to be dependent on them. That's the truth. Anybody that tells you otherwise, they are very, very quick. Look at the budget. The budget, we have a deficit of almost 9 trillion naira, always having balance of payment issues. And that is one thing that the World Bank and the IMF, they love it, because they are the ones that put the mechanisms in place so that companies or countries that depend on them will continue to have balance of payment problems. To the extent that the interest they pay on their loans alone, over a short period, the interest would have covered for the loan. Meanwhile, you are still indebted to them. So these are gloomy times that we are in, and it's going to even get worse. Unless we do something. There's something that we can do. We can change that. Right now, we are fixated on either complaining about Tinubu and his policies. We are fixated on it. But we can change that, because abuse Tinubu from now till thy kingdom come. The guy doesn't seem like he's listening or he's hearing. A comedian joked that it is Tinubu that really has the hearing problem, but he's not talking. Compared to Buhari, that will tell you that he cannot hear, that he has hearing problem. So if we complain from now till thy kingdom come, things will continue to be the way they are. Because if you look at it, think about it now. Since May 29th, when Tinubu was sworn in, we complained. In fact, we occupied social media, even physically, and we complained that, in fact, he must not be sworn in. The court cases must be exhausted before he is sworn in. Did they listen? They didn't. They went ahead, they swore him in. We went and brought out all the materials, the drug case in US, the case of his son buying an EFCC building, EFCC confiscated building in UK. All of those cases. Oh, he's a drug addict, a drug baron. We saw him in a Guinea helicopter. All of those things we brought out. All eyes on the judiciary. What happened? At the end of the day, they had their way. They removed fuel subsidy, came and told us all manner of lies, and they are still lying that lie till today. The fuel subsidy issue is still a lie till tomorrow. And we complained and complained and complained. And after a while, what happened? It passed. So, simply complaining is not going to solve the issue. The people we're dealing with, they understand that Nigerians have a very short memory. We will complain and complain, and after a short period, maximum 1 week, if a long 2 weeks, we'll move on to other things. So what do? They continue to just give us something to talk about. Complaining is not going to solve anything. I'm not saying we should not complain. I'm not saying we should not complain. We should complain, but complaints should not be the only thing. We should take it a step further. And what is that thing that we should do? We should begin to look at solutions that actually solve the problems of the average Nigerians. And that's why we must, as a beginning step, as a first step, we must sign this free food and social welfare law. We must sign it. Once we do that, like they did in America and they did in the UK, we can now start the process of having Nigerians have the food problem solved for them, and then they can now begin to think. Because one thing that the free food and social welfare law will do for us first is that it will revolutionize our agricultural sector. It will boost our food self-sufficiency 1,000 times, because the structure of the free food and social welfare law is such that the monies will not be given to people to spend on things that are imported. The money will be given to people to spend on food that are produced locally. And in that way, that money will go as incentives to encourage more people to engage in agricultural production. So this free food stamp and social welfare law is a must if we want to fix food problem for the poorest of the poor among Nigerians. And once we solve that, we will have Nigerians that are no longer hungry, because a hungry Nigerian is a senseless Nigerian. I'm sorry to say, but it's the truth. A hungry Nigerian thinks with his stomach. He doesn't care whether what he's doing is right or wrong. So far, it brings money. And so far as we have these hungry Nigerians, in their majority, that's up to like 60-70%. So far as we continue to have hungry Nigerians in that large numbers, these politicians will continue to weaponize that poverty and that hunger to dole out baits in the name of help. They will continue to do it, and these hungry Nigerians will continue to see these politicians as their destiny helper, their divine connection. They will continue to see it, and so long as that happens in Nigeria, this system will continue. It is the problem that must be solved if Nigeria is to start making progress. So I have attached, like I always do, the draft of this free food stamp and social welfare law. Let's go through it, and then let's make corrections between now and the 31st of January. From the 31st of January, whatever we have, we will take and we'll begin to write to our House of Representatives member in the National Assembly. We'll write to the senators at the National Assembly. We'll write to the president. Let them, if the senators and the House of Rep will not push it, we will begin to see, we'll begin to mount pressure. This is the kind of pressure we need to mount, because in mounting this pressure, we are not asking that Tinubu should resign. We are not asking that he should go. We are not asking that the House of Rep member, we are just saying this is a bill that will benefit the average Nigerian. So pass it. So when they don't pass it, we know that truly these people have been lying to us that they really have the interest of the people at heart.